Hello, everybody, and thank you for attending this webinar. I will just do a short presentation of the work that is done under the Basel Convention, and in particular related to e-waste. E-waste became a priority waste stream in 2002, and it was adopted at the conference of the Party of the Basel Convention at the 6th COP. And it is also at this COP that they started the first partnership related to e-waste, which was the Mobile Phone Partnership Initiative. Then in 2006, the parties to the Basel Convention adopted the Nairobi Declaration on Environmentally Sound Management of E-Waste, which focused on the theme of creating innovative solutions for the environmentally sound management of electronic waste, and which called for more structured and enhanced efforts towards achieving the global solution for management. Now, talking about BASE, BASE is a partnership. It is the Partnership for Action on Computing Equipment, and it was launched in 2008. It is a multi-stakeholder partnership. It's a forum for governments, for manufacturers, computer manufacturers, recyclers, international organizations, academia, and environmental groups and NGOs. Now, what are the BASE activities? First, BASE aimed at assisting developing countries and countries with economies in transition for the environmentally sound management of used and end-of-life computing equipment. And to do so, the partnership has developed different tools and guidelines. They are also implementing pilot projects which are testing the guidelines that are developed, and they are also doing some awareness raising and training program activities. And one of these outreach activities, for example, these webinars, where we invite Thank you, Dan. So we organize for example, some webinars, and we are happy, for example, today to invite one of our partner in BASE, the ILO, who will present and give more details on one of their latest reports on e-waste. Now back to BASE outputs. The main output of BASE will be the guidance document on environmentally sound management of used and end-of-life computing equipment, which will compile the different results, conclusions, and recommendations that were collected in the different guidelines that were developed under BASE. Currently, we had 2 guidelines that were already approved by the Conference of the Parties of the Basel Convention, one on environmentally sound testing, refurbishment, and repair of used computing equipment, and the second one on environmentally sound material recovery and recycling of end-of-life computing equipment. Now, it is important that the guidelines that are adopted by the parties and developed by the different stakeholders are in fact used in the ground. And to do so, we have different ways to do that. The first, and they play a very important role, is to to work with and through the Basel Convention regional centers that can raise awareness in the region, that disseminate the Basel Convention guidelines, strengthen the policy dialogue, and provide expertise on the ESM of e-waste. Another way, as I mentioned before, is also, of course, to test the guideline, but also through the pilot activities and projects that we implement in the different regions of the world. Here you have the examples, the one that we have currently in Burkina Faso, El Salvador, Jordan, Moldova, Serbia, South Africa, and Suriname. It is also an opportunity to start to trigger the discussion on e-waste and to share some experience in the region. Then there are other projects at the national and regional level on e-waste that are supported by bilateral and multilateral donors that we are working with. And there are also the different technical support and publications that are developed by different partners from the PACE community. I will finish my presentation now, and you will find all this information and certainly much more on our website, or you can always contact us, of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good morning, or afternoon, or evening to all of you. My name is David Seligson, and I'm the head of the Manufacturing, Mining, and Energy Unit at the International Labour Office here in Geneva. So last year we published this paper on e-waste and the potential of cooperative enterprises, and would like to present our conclusions here. I will start, and my colleague Valtteri will continue. A word to the Spanish speakers in the audience. Our presentations will be in English, but you're also welcome to put forward your questions in Spanish, which will then be replied in English. Entonces, aunque nosotros hagamos las presentaciones en inglés, ustedes pueden hacer sus preguntas también en castellano, pero las respuestas serán en inglés. So as you know, e-waste is not a recent issue. We at the ILO started to pay attention to it around 2009 and noticed that it had been discussed mostly as an environmental problem. Our starting point at the ILO were the people who are actually working with e-waste. We joined the PACE partnership in 2010 and initiated some pilot activities in China and Serbia in 2012. We published a first, more generic working paper, and the paper we are now presenting is a follow-up to that, as we wanted to look closer to the problems of informality. Sorry. Let me briefly go over some main feature of e-waste. Firstly, it is growing fast. Although we do lack a universally accepted definition of e-waste. The United Nations University, they just published guidelines on classification on e-waste. It can be harmful. Parts of e-waste contain hazardous materials, which are harmful to people and the environment. For example, you take an old fridge, 20 years old, and it contains CFC. A positive feature of e-waste is the capability of it to generate employment. And it is claimed, for example, that 1 ton of e-waste in Africa per month creates 1 job. However, the employment we find in the e-waste recycling chain is a mix of informal and formal, and this presents us with challenges, and to solve these challenges we need innovative approaches. The picture you see in this slide was taken, by the way, in Ghana. Here are some of the risks e-waste presents to human health and the environment. It can contain heavy metals, persistent organic pollutants, flame retardants, other very nasty things. It can cause many kinds of health problems, and not only to those that directly work with e-waste, but also to their children and to the communities around. It can contaminate soil and water and pollute the atmosphere. And the problem is that the health effects of some of the chemicals found in e-waste are still unknown. It's very difficult to find out what is the so-called cocktail effect, that is the simultaneous effects of tens of chemicals. A lot of attention to e-waste has come from the fact that it has been exported from the industrialized countries to developing countries. And the picture you see in this slide illustrates some of the trade flows. However, many developing countries are huge generators of e-waste themselves. For example, in China, the generation of e-waste quadrupled in just 10 years. So e-waste recycling as a whole is dominated by informal economy. Why is that, and what are the drivers? One reason is that consumers are not aware that they possess waste, and if they are aware, they don't really know what to do with it. It doesn't smell, and some of the e-waste is quite small. E-waste is being imported into the developing countries, and much of it illegally, and hence it will go into informal economy. It may be that there is no or very little infrastructure for recycling, and even if this recycling is regulated, often these regulations are not properly implemented. E-waste can be quite valuable, so there are incentives to work within the chain. But at the same time, environmentally sound management of parts of the e-waste can be costly. And this in its turn creates an incentive to export e-waste to developing countries where environmental regulations or their implementations are more lax. So we have here a classical problem of cherry picking, where parts of the recycling have positive value, but parts of the recycling has negative value. As I mentioned before, many developing countries already now generate a lot of e-waste through imports of electrical and electronic devices, and also through domestic manufacturing. In addition, there is sizable illegal import of either used devices or pure e-waste. The picture you see in this slide is from a recycling plant in Canada. Next, I want to explore some possible solutions to the problems, both on local and on international levels. On local levels, the workers who work with e-waste, they clearly need to know more about the materials they are processing and be better trained on how to manage these processes. Informal recyclers should be steered away from destructive processes, and we should find the best of two worlds, that is, how to integrate the informal and the formal economies. And one way to bridge this gap between informal and formal precisely is the use of cooperatives. If we look at the international level, the Basel Convention stipulates the prior informed consent and shipment of this should be used, as not all e-waste can be properly recycled in the country where it is generated. We do need also international cooperation, and already now many UN agencies such as us at the ILO, the UNEP and UNIDO are collaborating together. Many countries have adopted extended producer responsibility schemes. And last but not least, it is important to ensure that electrical and electronic appliances are built to last, that they contain as little as possible hazardous materials, and that they are built in a way that they are then easy to recycle or refurbish. As I said, e-waste recycling is a mix of formal and informal. If we look at the stage of generation, we can see the manufacturers and consumers, and we can see that importers can be both formal and they can be informal. Again, in the collection phase, we can see we have formal collectors, but also informal e-waste collectors, scrap dealers, and waste pickers. And the last and most crucial phase is the treatment phase, where we have the formal smelters, recycling companies, but also informal recyclers, dismantlers, disassemblers, and this is the dangerous part of the US chain. The ILO has since the 1990s worked through what is called the Decent Work Agenda. This agenda has 4 pillars: employment, rights at work, social protection, and social dialogue. So I'm now looking at e-waste management through this framework and trying to identify some of the problems that we have in each of these categories. If we look at employment, we find that informality is prevailing, and this in itself manifests itself in low earnings and dangerous working conditions. Then looking at rights at work, we often find children working with e-waste, and also e-waste recycling carried out by disadvantaged groups such as migrants and also ethnic minorities. Social protection, informal workers have usually very limited access to social protection schemes and very rarely are insured against risks in their work. And as for the last pillar, the social dialogue, it's hard to find as workers are usually not organized and very often also not recognized by the authorities. And here you can see the cover of the working paper and also the link where you can download the paper. We hope that you do that, and I thank you and give now the floor to my colleague. Thank you.
Okay, hello from my part as well. I am Valtteri Katajamäki, and I work for the cooperatives unit in the International Labour Organization in Geneva. Whereas David and his team in the sectoral activities department have been already working on this e-waste issue for quite some years. For us in the cooperatives part, this is something completely new, and actually these publications that we did jointly with them is our first attempt to start tackling this. However, we do have experiences quite a bit from the solid waste management sector that we have found very helpful in this process as well. And while we were researching towards this publication, we also found out that this whole issue of role of cooperative enterprises in the e-waste management, and particularly in the informal economies of the e-waste management, we found out that this is something that in general globally has been relatively little studied. So what I'm going to do here now, I'm going to quickly define what is a cooperative, how the ILO understands cooperative enterprise. Then we look at the role of cooperatives in formalizing the workers in the informal economy with the examples from both solid waste as well as e-waste management as far as we have them. Then I present a case study from India, a very famous one. And then I will end with some conclusions and recommendations that the initial ones that came out in the study. What are cooperative enterprises then? As you may know, the International Labour Organization is a standard-setting organization on employment and labor issues. And the labor standard we have on the cooperatives is the cooperatives promotion of cooperatives recommendation from 2002, and it provides a legal definition of a cooperative as an autonomous association of persons united voluntarily to meet their common economic, social and cultural needs and aspirations through a jointly owned and democratically controlled enterprise. So this is the way we, as well as most of the other international actors, including the International Cooperative Alliance, understand cooperative enterprise. There are different types of co-ops, and very roughly we have divided them into 3 different types. There are producer cooperatives, for instance, agricultural and fisheries cooperatives and craft producer cooperatives, for instance. Then we have consumer cooperatives, which is, for example, the retail and food cooperatives, but then also healthcare, insurance, financial service cooperatives. And while these two provide services to their members and other people, the worker cooperatives are actually the ones that provide employment for their members. So members are also the owners of the enterprise as well as the employees, and then they jointly democratically decide on major entrepreneurial decisions to be taken in the enterprise. We have cooperatives in basically all the sectors of the economy, in banking, insurance, agriculture, fisheries, health, industry and services, retail and housing, and others as well, and of course in waste management as well. So then, what is the role of co-ops in formalizing the workers in the informal economy? They can play different roles in this organization, and I have divided them in 3 different ones, somewhat overlapping, but still it's quite distinctive in many ways. The first one is the political and social role, which basically means organizing the workers. Cooperatives are democratic organizations, so they teach their members to build democratic organizations and accountable leadership. And often it is said that cooperatives are schools of democracy, as they promote dialogue, consultation and negotiation, for instance. Co-ops also provide a common voice to advocate for more decent standards of work, for example. This is through the collective voice that the members have, and they sometimes, in places where trade unions are not present or highly active, cooperatives often come and take some of the role of trade unions as well. And this means that bargaining power comes in these organizations. And for instance, through cooperatives, people are often able to negotiate better standards and prices for their produce, for example. And in waste management, we have seen that waste workers have been able to negotiate with the municipalities on different services, for instance, on door-to-door collection or sorting and recycling of waste or other types of services. We have also seen cooperatives as a way to promote women's participation and empowerment. We have seen evidence that women's participation in cooperatives actually increase the whole family incomes, and this has been proven in different parts of the world, not specifically to waste management, but for cooperatives in general. Very importantly, cooperatives provide for recognition and higher status of informal workers. often through cooperatives, people can improve their capacities and knowledge on rights at work and access to services available to them. So this way, waste workers, for instance, gain more recognition, and they often are considered as environmental workers rather than just, waste pickers, for instance. And finally, through cooperative movement, there are national and international networks for wider advocacy, which enables informal workers to search for improved advocacy and fair and just solutions to their problems. For waste management, one very famous example is the Global Alliance of Waste Pickers as a good example. And also in last year, when the International Labour Conference in the ILO was discussing about the new standards for the formalizing of workers in the informal economy, there was quite a good representation by waste workers in this important conference. The second role that we have defined is the economic development role. So of course, cooperatives as enterprises can provide employment opportunities, and through these opportunities comes often improved livelihoods, including improved working conditions and particularly occupational safety and health. Cooperatives, because they are democratically controlled enterprises, they have a possibility to arrange limited working hours. They can reduce the intensity and physical demands of labor through dividing different tasks more equally. And on occupational safety and health, they have better opportunities to provide their workers with safety equipment such as face masks or gloves or other types of equipment. Cooperatives pool resource, so members collectively contribute with resources towards the enterprise, which also means that the risk is divided within a larger number of people. And this collective collection of resources, of course, leads to increased capacity for investments. And in waste management, this is very important because then equipment for recycling, for instance, can be invested on and acquired. Also, cooperatives have a capacity to sell directly to the industry. With e-waste, we often have the problem that individual people are only able to collect very small quantities of e-waste, and then this is sold through middlemen. So basically, cooperatives often offer an option to get rid of the middleman in the value chain of e-waste, and because they have the capacity to combine larger quantities of waste, and this improves their bargaining power to negotiate prices directly with the industry. And importantly, co-ops also offer training and skills development to their members to acquire increased knowledge and skills. And this is, of course, particularly important when we talk about working with hazardous substances, such as in e-waste management. The third role, which is somewhat overlapping with the previous two ones, is the service provision role that co-ops have. So first of all, they provide services for their members, to those workers in the informal economy, through, for instance, access to both financial and non-financial services. As an organized group, the cooperatives are enabled to receive improved access to loans and credit, for instance, but then also there are other services such as social protection services. We often see cooperatives providing healthcare or childcare to their members. And one of the decent work deficits that David was mentioning earlier was child labor, of course, and we have evidence in solid waste management that when people no longer need to take their children to work, and because they have a child care provided by the cooperative, this means that child labor is diminishing in waste management. So this is one side, and then the other side is that the services that cooperatives provide to the community as whole. So this is through the services, waste collection, for instance, door-to-door collection, or recycling materials. And this most often takes place in places where public or private services are scarce or non-existent. So this is a service provided. Then very importantly, the last point, capacity to diversify offered services. So most of the informal work in e-waste management happens in the collection phase. So basically, as a cooperative, it can gradually take on more specialized tasks and increase skills of its members, and this way move up to the value chain to dismantling and other tasks. And it's also probably good to note here that the evidence that we have gathered shows that there are actually very few, if any, cooperatives that work only on e-waste management, but often these are cooperatives that work on waste management in general, and then one of the waste streams that they work on is on e-waste. The case of Swatch in Pune in India is a very famous one. And so this was a trade union that established a cooperative providing collection, recycling, and disposal services in the city of Pune in India. It was established in 2008, and already it has 9,000 members, and 80% of them are women. And it services more than 400,000 households in Pune, so it has become a key player in the waste management in this area. Since 2012, the municipality has also authorized Swatch to collect and channel e-waste, so they are not authorized to process, but they can collect and channel through their existing recycling collection network. They have achieved improved working conditions for the members through, for instance, acquiring safety equipment and uniforms so that people recognize that these are waste workers, which also increases the safety of these women who work on the collection. They have an 8-hour working day, and they have also access to healthcare and schooling for their children. So there have been quite a few social changes in the Swatch cooperative as well. And since the establishment of the co-op, the incomes of the members have more than doubled in these cooperatives, and currently they are recognized as environmental workers rather than something else. So this is a recognized occupation at the moment. So then just a few conclusions that we would like to present here. First of all, cooperative enterprises, they do carry a great deal of potential to promote organization and formalization of e-waste workers who are mostly informal. The second conclusion is that there are only a few well-researched case studies on cooperatives in e-waste management, and better understanding and more evidence-based country-level research is needed, therefore. And then finally, we need to learn and cross-fertilize from the examples that we do have, for instance, India and Brazil, where government has supported involvement of cooperatives with formal e-waste sector. Cross-fertilization in those is needed. At the very end, just a couple of recommendations that we make. The first one is on the cooperative legislation. So co-ops need to have an enabling policy and legal environment to allow for the development of sustainable e-waste cooperatives. So this basically means that based on the, for instance, the ILO recommendation number 193 on the promotion of cooperatives and other related instruments, the cooperative legislation should promote the enabling framework for the cooperatives. The next one is for e-waste management. So there is a need for participatory development of public policies, guidelines, and regulations on e-waste management. And finally, we have the enterprise level, where training and capacity building is needed to ensure e-waste workers' awareness on sound e-waste management. That's it from my part for now. Looking forward for your questions. Thank you.